We have Laurie Brandt. And Laurie is awaiting to be sworn in. Hey, Laurie.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
We have Ingrid. We have
Hi.
Mike.
I made it finally.
Great.
Hey,
I'm so
Paul.
sorry. That was my dropped 3. We have Pauline. We have Mercy, Sheila, Deborah, Mike, and Nick, and myself and Harriet. Those are our, and Frank.
And me.
Frank.
What about Moshe?
He is here as well. And we have Cindy, our captioner, and any other guests.
And you have Helen.
We
And
have
Helen.
Helen.
And
We have Dawn Austin. Hi, Dawn. And that's everybody. Yes.
Holly, one interjection. This is Harriet. If people could try to remember to say their name each time they speak, it's very helpful for us listeners and maybe for sighted people as well. And also, if we can try our best not to use acronyms, but say the organization in full, it's another huge, big help, because remembering the alphabet soup of any particular, area that we're working on is quite a challenge. Thank you.
This is Holly. Thank you, Harriet. Go ahead,
Do our
Adrian.
best, do our best not to crosstalk just the way I did. Oh, and stay on mute when we're not speaking.
yes, through the chair, I know you just did a roll call vote, but considering this is the first regular meeting with this larger body, if there's either time now or maybe at some other point in the meeting for maybe everybody to introduce themselves, I think that would be helpful.
Yes, I agree. So we have quorum. I'm gonna call the meeting to order, and we have guests. Here we go. We are called to order. It's official. I'm gonna read through the agenda. Oh, this is Holly. I'm gonna read through the agenda first. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. We're gonna have some welcome introductions. We're gonna approve the meeting minutes, which
don't
didn't get
think so.
updated, did they?
Yeah, I
We are
think
going to
it's late for that.
skip number 3. Adrian's going to give us an update, Harriet, and then myself. And then we have some guests from the city, which we're very happy to have. We have Miranda Rubin, who's going to speak with us and answer some questions. I sent out a lot of documents regarding her presentation so we could all be familiar with it and prepared to talk. And then we're going to talk about some planning, communication, training, and events for this current calendar year. And then briefly about our meeting schedules. And then for continued business, we're going to talk a little about these working groups, or I'm not sure of the OML or non-OML labels, but things that we can get done together and then bring back to the larger body. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so welcome everyone. And Adrian, would you like to start us off?
Apologies, I was finishing dinner, so I did.
Okay.
My name is Adrienne Pomeroy. I actually am the ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act coordinator for the city of Somerville. As part of that role, I'm the staff liaison to the Somerville Commission for Persons with Disabilities. I met most of you when you were going through the longer process to be a member of this commission. And I look forward to getting to know you more. So yeah, and I've been with the city for a little over 2 years at this point.
Go ahead and pass it on, maybe, Adrian?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Holly. I thought you were going to give your report.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were doing introductions. I'm so sorry.
You can do both if that's okay. I appreciate the first one as much as the second one.
So there's my introduction, which was probably going to be most of my report. Not super much to report right now. I will be meeting with Holly and Harriet on a weekly basis for about 20 to 30 minutes starting tomorrow. We had a really great meeting last week, a longer meeting, just to sort of cut down on emails a little bit and just have communication about anywhere from like future agenda items and then maybe other logistics around things that the commission may need going forward with events, which is much easier to do, as I'm sure you all are aware, in a meeting space, even a virtual meeting space, than, you know, responding back and forth with a lot of emails, because a lot does get lost. And there's some exciting things I think coming up that Holly's further down the agenda that Holly is going to talk about. And on sort of a back end with that, because I am the ADA coordinator with the city and of course the staff liaison to this commission, I always have, you know, an open door during work hours. Please, if you ever want to talk about something else that maybe is not brought up this meeting, or you have a question about anything with the city, I'm always happy to make those connections or talk things through, because I am, in fact, your liaison to other city staff and other resources as well. So that's my report for this evening. So I will pass it back to the chair.
Thank you, Adrian. Brian, do you want to introduce yourself briefly next, and then I'll pass it on to Sheila?
Good evening. I'm Brian Postlewaite. I am a commission member, and I am the commission member as requested by the mayor's office. I also serve as the administrator's or the administration's director of engineering. So I run our engineering division, which mostly involves reconstruction and permitting that goes on in the public way. So that includes streets, utilities, etc. One of the main reasons why the mayor appointed me to this commission was because of the work we do with reconstructing sidewalks throughout the city, as well as streets and crosswalks, etc. So that's a large point of why I am here. I also serve as the secretary, and I will be taking minutes this evening.
Sorry, I'm ruffling papers and I'm not good at turning mute on and off. Thank you, Brian. We appreciate you in all the roles that you serve, especially your evenings with us. Sheila, would you like to go next?
You did, okay. Sheila Tracy, one of the newly appointed members of the board, lifelong resident of Somerville, longtime advocate for disability issues, and looking forward to both learning from the commission and contributing to the commission and the work that you do.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Very much. Helen, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Helen Corrigan, longtime Somerville resident. I have 2 disabilities. I have terrible hearing, and my mobility is a big problem to me. I look forward to working with the commission members, and I think we all have different outlooks, different concerns. One of my main ones is accessibility. And handicap parking and being able to cross streets safely for people, particularly people who are blind. I don't see that working well in the city. But I don't want to go on because there are a lot of other people who want to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Once I got past 4 people, I can't scroll without losing everybody, so I'm gonna go a little out of order. Forgive me, using the list here. Pauline, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Pauline Downing. I've been a member of the commission for just about the past year. Somerville resident who's lived here for pretty much it. I am blind and interested in making street crossings and sidewalks more accessible. About it.
Thank you, Pauline.
Pauline, I got a quick question.
Oh, of course.
Pauline, this is Brian Postlewaite. Are you still a member of PTAC?
I am not a member of PTAC, no. Ginny is, but she is in rehab right now.
Jenny, what? Okay, my apologies, Pauline.
She's in rehab. We're not sure when she's coming home. She had an appointment today, but it got canceled, so I don't know what the next step for her is.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. That's uncomfortable.
This is Michael. May I ask what PTAC is?
Good
PTAC,
question.
it is Pedestrian Transit Advisory Committee.
And
Thank
we
you.
have time a little bit later, Michael. I'll put it on my list to explain what the public transit, I already forgot the rest of the acronym, what they do, and how they intersect with some of the work that we do. Deborah, would you like to go next?
Sure. I am a relatively recent addition to the commission. I started last year, and I have both a genetic connective tissue disorder and chronic fatigue syndrome that are disabling to me, and a child who shares my disorders and is autistic. I am particularly interested in housing and school accessibility.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Rashid, would you like to go next?
Are we just introducing ourselves or?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Murshid Buembo Kasule. I'm a wheelchair user. I use a manual wheelchair. I hate electric wheelchairs. I don't know why. I like using manual wheelchairs, and I'm a member of the commissioner, one of the newly appointed members of the commission, and I'm happy to be here. And most of my interests are into accessibility, and then also employment for people with disabilities and sports.
Mhm.
Great, thank you. Ingrid, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, sorry, Ingrid. I am, oh, sorry. I have two little kids in the other room full of melatonin watching Disney, so I'm sorry. I am a member of the commission newly. I have two sons. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 10 years ago, and it's only kind of really led to disability in the past 2.5 years. So I walk with a cane, and I'm like struggling to navigate sort of the new condition of being part of the disabled community. My son is also autistic, so I'm very concerned with, like someone else said, like accessibility in the schools, and like someone else said, parking, and just accessibilities around the city, but also really concerned with disability pride and trying to make sure the next generation doesn't have as much shame as the last generation had to deal with, and how to unravel that. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. Laurie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Lori Brandt, she, her, hers, and I am about to be a member as soon as you swear me in. I'm a longtime resident of Somerville, and I have ambulatory problems, use a wheelchair part-time, and I have post-traumatic stress disorder. And I also teach nonviolent communication, and I'd be happy to teach classes to any members of government and staff for free on Zoom. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Nick, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Nick Altschuler. Happy to help in any way I can. I guess if I have a focus, it's my eldest son has a rare genetic disorder. He can't speak, and so I'm just always looking for ways for him to be included and adaptive sports and things like that. So, but in any way I can help, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Mike, I think you are our last
Michael,
commissioner.
Michael Shaps. I've been in Somerville, I think 3 years now. I love Somerville. I worked I'm still working as a school psychologist for 30 years. And before that, I was a social worker for about 10. I have an interest in neurotypical disabilities, such as people with autism, ADHD, anxiety, anything, intellectual impairment, anything that has to do with the mind. And I also have a passion for helping children. So those are areas that I have interest in. Thank you.
Thanks. Harriet, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Harriet Ranvig. I've been on the commission since about a year ago, and long-term disability advocate professionally, and also just as a volunteer over the last 40 years. And I'm vice chair or co-chair with Holly, and I'm interested in just about everything, but communication, accessibility, and all of its layers of program access, physical access, everything. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm delighted to have all the new members here. It's just, we can do a lot more work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, would you like to go next?
Yes, so Frank, so I'm an associate commissioner, and my interest is in accessibility, since as Harriet's partner. I'm also her chief IT support. So just learning a lot about technology and accessibility. So that's my interest.
Thank you. Brian, did you have a question?
I did. This is Brian. I just, as I'm taking the minutes, I noticed many people shared their particular disability, and unless anybody wants me to, I'm treating that as personal information and not including it in the public record. But I am including the interests that everybody said, because I think the interests are something that's germane and of interest to how we all interact as members on the commission. If anyone has any comments or differing opinions on that, Holly, I will leave it to you if you want to have that discussion.
Thank you. Mike, you had your hand up?
I do, so I have a feeling I said neurotypical, and for those who realize that I said that instead of neurodivergent, if I ever make a mistake, I would appreciate anybody correcting me, because I think it really is important, the language that we use. But I meant neurodivergent, not neurotypical. Thank you very much. And do people understand the idea of neurotypical? I'm sorry, I keep using that term. Is there anyone who does not understand what that term is? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mike, my mind did an autocorrect, so I didn't even catch it.
Thank you both for jumping in. I'm Holly Simeone. I've been part of the commission for several years. The majority of it was when I wasn't, a lot of it was when I was not an official member. The commission has grown significantly, which is, as Harriet said, it's an absolute blessing. We need lots of hands to do lots of different tasks. And I'm really excited that we've added such a strong group of new members that are all have unique points of view and strengths and interests that really just add to our commission. And I'm really proud that all of you, all members, are taking the time to participate on this and providing you work and being great residents. Mike?
I am so sorry I keep talking. But I just wanted to quickly say to Brian, I believe you probably asked that question because you want to be respectful of people. But just my opinion, first of all, it is a public record because this is, we're already recording it. But I would also say that if people are sharing it, that they are comfortable to share it. And because it is a thing that we need to accept from, this is who we are, it would be my opinion to put it in there. But that's just me, because I actually didn't say at this time what my disability was. But that's just my 2 cents, that this is something we all deal with, and it's part of who we are. And if we didn't feel comfortable saying it, we never would have. So that's my opinion.
Thanks, Mike. If anyone would, if anyone has any issues, just let me know if, how things are being stated. Mike, you're correct, and Brian, you're correct also. Let's get started. Harriet?
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. And just keep a little timer on me. I'll try to make it short. There's so much to cover tonight. It's been a powerful, rich experience to join the commission. And we had an excellent meeting last Thursday with you, Adrian, and with Stephen Flythe and Holly and me and Frank. And one of the, perhaps the most major thing we discussed was communication. And clearly communication is a very broad spectrum thing, but these days, the vast majority of our communications are on email, which one presumes that anyone and everyone in the city and in the government, and city government, and on the commission has, first of all, reasonable computer literacy. That does not include everyone in the public, nor everyone in the commission. And one of the things that I brought up that turned out to be very fertile ground for all of us to discuss was big, long threads of emails, which leave one, at least me, and I found out it wasn't just my issue, confused as to the essence of the communications because of the way emails get quoted and requoted and requoted and requoted, not to mention the headers and footers, which a sighted reader, their eyes will just sort of glance through that to get at least to something like the body of a text, a body of an email. And as I read through the Braille transcription, I was blown away. Do you know a good third to a half of this document is just headers and footers in Braille? What do you think? It's a waste of paper and my time. So we'll get that clarified and improved. But all in all, Adrian's invitation, if you want to come by, or I think Holly and I make our phone numbers available to any of us on the commission and so forth and so on. Anything we can do with more direct communication is enormous. So that's one point. And then the other point I wanted to bring up was, speaking of computer literacy, there's also a literacy of map reading, of Excel sheets or spreadsheet reading, and complex documents which have to be processed and do have an impact on people with disabilities. For example, the 5-year plan for housing to some degree, and also especially the one space and use of the intersections being improved and upgraded here in Somerville. It really does take another level of interpretation, whether it's paid staff in the city or very educated and very competent individuals of the city, to be able to sit down and parse, okay, for year 24 or 25, these 6 intersections are going to be covered, and find out and help explain what paths of travel that will impact for citizens in that neighborhood. Because in some fashion, that kind of communication and education, to be really inclusive and have some equity, needs to be considered. Exactly how in the world we're going to implement that, it's going to take a bit of time and putting heads together. And I think it's a very important issue. So those are just a couple of things that I have gleaned from the last while. And that's it for me, unless anyone has any questions.
Did you want to talk about the swing?
Oh, yes, I
Like
do.
me to put that on later.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. In reading through the 13 documents that accompanied tonight's meeting, I cannot say I've done them justice. But one of the things that is really very strong for me is the complex issue of what's accessible and what's compliant. They're two different things. ADA is a law, and as we know, laws never keep up with true accessibility for people with disabilities. Number one, cross disabilities are huge. So thanks to one or more residents in the city, we now realize that we don't have accessible swings, fully accessible swings. So I believe in our previous meeting, we have chosen to use some of our funds to put in at least one accessible swing. And of course, we need to figure out which park it will go into. And also, Brian, you kindly enough have provided us with some information and some prices. And if I understand correctly, a single swing, which I am fairly certain, but I haven't really read all the specs, will be an appropriate swing, is about $2,000. However, if we get the pathway to the swing fully accessible, it will cost somewhere around $10,000. And I was thinking about an analogy that if we only got the swing and expected mothers, brothers, and parents and guardians to carry a child to a swing, that might be a heavy 12-year-old. That's kind of like having a faucet without having the handle to the faucet. So that's just my own made up analogy. So I'm very excited that we're going to work on this project and get agreements going so that we can go ahead and bring this about. I think it will make a big improvement. And I hope that we'll be able to approve more than one swing over time. So
Thank you, Harriet. Murshid, you have a hand raised. Would you like to ask a question?
I just wanted to bring it to your attention that I did not receive any documents, attack documents whatsoever. But I heard Harriet talking about the documents. Like the documents she's talking about, like the plan and everything. I did not get any. I don't know whether I was forgotten or what.
They were emailed out and posted online, and I will double check that right now. But I'll also make sure that I email them to you right now. Would that be, or if I were to send you the link, would you be able to? I'll get them to you right now while we're talking.
If you send me the link, I can maneuver and get them.
I hope you'll accept our apologies, Murshid. That is pretty unforgivable. And
Yeah.
It's
I will accept.
exactly the kind of thing that happens with all of us with disabilities. The last thing I would say in my report is, for example, if I'm faced with a document that's very dense with lots of status and of different tasks and so forth, and I even have a secretary who might pay $25 an hour. And she and I attempted to go through those documents. And at some point, she wasn't able to interpret very well for me. So what happens to any person with a disability is at some point you acquiesce and say, well, I guess that's as good as it gets. So this is the kind of thing that I hope we can transform as we work together. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna come back with my report later, but I'd like to welcome our guest who's here today to present us with a 5-year plan.
Hi, ready for me?
We're ready. Please introduce yourself and thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is Miranda Rubin. I work for the city of Somerville. I am in the Office of Special Projects and Community Development. I'm on the finance and admin team. My role is program compliance officer. And I do a lot of compliance. We get a lot of money from the federal government regarding grants that generally it's from the Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, department of the federal government. So a lot of the money is for housing and infrastructure improvements. Because we get several grants from the government, actually, I'm going to pause.
Yes, could you slow down in your speaking just a little?
Yes, I am aware that I do speak very quickly, and I will do my best.
Thank you. It will help.
Yes. We get a lot because we get about $3 million annually from the federal government. We are required to every year create an annual action plan on how we intend to spend the money. We have to create an end of year report on how we did spend the money. And what I'm speaking with you all tonight about is we have to every 5 years create a longer term plan on how we intend to spend about $3 million a year from the federal government in Somerville. So I'm really asking you, we're drafting the plan currently. There will be a draft plan to the public in April or May. But right now I'm going to give you just a background on what the funding could be used for. And I'd love your feedback on how you would suggest what you think the biggest needs are in Somerville. I'm going to give you the examples of what it could be used for. But again, this is all mandated by the federal government, not by the city. So there are three grant programs that we received money from. The first is the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. That is an acronym that we kind of use as its own word. That gives us about $2.5 million each year for just a wide variety of projects, but they all have benefit low and moderate income individuals across the city. The Home Grant is only money for affordable housing programs and projects. And the ESG, which is Emergency Services Grant, is about $200,000 annually to help with homelessness prevention. So in that bigger $2.5 million, that is the Community Development Block Grant, again, it all has to benefit low and moderate income individuals. I'll explain what that means in a second. But eligible activities of that category include housing, infrastructure improvements, public facilities, public services, and homeless programs. The low and moderate income is a term that is set by the federal government, by the Housing and Urban Development Department. There is a graph. I do believe that my coworker Roberta, who could not be here today, helped to create a document for you all that is able to be translated to Braille that will have these numbers in them as well. But the federal government takes census data from the Somerville area and declares what they are going to count as a low or moderate income household. And then in Somerville, this money can be used in one of two ways. One, on an exact project to say, let's fix up this exact playground. And we know that this playground is going to serve low moderate individuals, or it can serve a whole neighborhood, such as street improvements, mobility improvements, sidewalk repaving, tree plantings. And on the map that's on the screen, again, I believe that is also in the other document that is Braille accessible. There are areas shaded in green that are census tracts within the city that there are 51% or more of individuals in that area are low and moderate income. So there is it's a different way to categorize projects. Some of those areas include East Somerville and Union Square, a little bit up by Assembly as well.
Excuse me, this is Harriet. Can you read out the income limits for the different areas, because Pauline's on the phone?
Yes, the income limits. So the graph that I have is by household size of 1 to 6 individuals per household, and then very low income, which is 30% of the area median income. Low is 50% of the area median income, and moderate is 80%. Just as an example, a family of 4 at a very low income level makes $44,520 annually. Low, 50% family in Somerville with a family of 4 would make $74,200 annually, and a moderate family, which would make 80% of the area median income for a family of 4, would make $118,720 annually. So as you can see, even a moderate family is not making a little amount of money in Somerville.
Would it be okay if I paused us just for 1 second?
Sure.
Does anyone else have any questions, comments, or would like anything explained that we've been presented so far?
This is Pauline. What about a household of 2?
Sure, a household of 2 at a very low income level in Somerville would make $35,640 annually. Low would be $59,400, and moderate would be $95,040 annually. And these numbers are prone to change as the different census data comes across year to year as they update it whenever they take new surveys. This is the most recent that we have.
This is Harriet. One last question. So for example, if a household of 2 came in lower than 31,000 or whatever it was a year, would there be, if they were listed somewhere, would they get a higher priority than other people? You know, in the upper categories? Or
Yeah,
how
that's
does
a good question. It is only in these category chunks. They don't classify everything. So they just be classified as very low if they're below that lowest threshold.
I see.
Yes.
Any other quick questions? Okay, please keep going. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
Sure.
Helen.
It's about the places that are marked for assistance, if that's the right word. Does that mean that somebody who lives in any other part of the city is not eligible for help?
No, it does not. So let's, for example, the Davis Square area is not a low and moderate income area in Somerville. The area as a whole has less than 51% of individuals that qualify as low or moderate income. So that means that for Davis Square area, we could not use this money for, let's say, street improvements. But if there was an individual in Davis Square who needed a house renovation, that could be used because it's for one family that is low and moderate income.
Okay, thank you. I was personally thinking of homelessness.
Yes, homelessness would be across the city.
Lots of homeless people
Yes.
in the area where I live.
Yes, homelessness. So
Okay.
generally, I'll get to this in a little bit, but a lot of the money for some of these other programs is the city provides it to other nonprofits and services in the area. So it would be how they choose, but they can only receive the funding if they are going to prove that they will serve an area or population that is 51% or more low and moderate income persons.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miranda, a quick question. So when we look at the map, the green areas versus the white areas, are all income driven. What data is used to determine that? Is it census information or how are those values determined?
It is the census, yes. But it is not just a 10-year census. They have it's ACS data, which I think is the American Census something. I forget what the S stands for, that it's annual data that they update. So I believe the current data set that this map came from is the 2022 data.
Oh, American Community Survey. We had to fill
There.
one several years
That's
ago.
it. Thank you.
It's only every 10 years, I think, isn't it?
Oh, no. This is an intermediate. It's between
Yes.
the cycle.
This is an annual survey.
I see.
They select random households, I think.
Yes. I'm not sure how they do it, but this is not the 10-year census. This is a different thing that's also within the Census Bureau's domain.
Great questions.
Yes.
Thank you, Miranda.
Yeah.
The floor back.
No problem. If you, and yeah, you can all raise your hands or put questions in the chat as well if you think of something while I'm speaking. Pictures on the screen right now are mostly irrelevant, but I'm going to give you some examples of how we have used this money in the past across Somerville. One, for economic development, the East Somerville and Union Square Main Streets organizations provide technical assistance to small businesses. We help fund them. In regards to housing, the 100 Homes program, the Community Land Trust, tenant-based rental assistance, and home buyer assistance all have been helped with this money. For transportation and infrastructure, there have been some pedestrian safety improvements, as well as tree plantings. For park improvements, the parks that have been affected recently that you may have known about are Prospect Hill Park, the Healy School Playground, Junction Park, which is currently under construction, the Allen Street Playground, and the Glen Capuano Community Garden expansion, which is also currently underway. Otherwise, there are programs that deal with food security, homelessness prevention, job readiness, crisis intervention, and senior services. So again, I said this at the top of my presentation. That's just background of what this money could be used for, why we receive it, and what it's generally for. But as my coworker and I develop this 5-year plan, we'd like to set some more specific goals as to where we think Somerville needs the most urgent help, or what we could use this money for that would best serve the widest number of individuals. On the screen, and I believe this is in your materials as well, is the link to our website on the city's site, as well as a survey, which is available in many languages. We'd love for you to fill that out and share it with those you know to get as much input as possible. The survey will be open through the end of this month. And my email is there as well, which I'll say it out loud, is mrubin, RUBIN, @somervillema.gov. And you can also, I believe that Holly and Adrian have my email as well, if you have any further questions and don't write it down. So any questions right now?
Would you share, maybe you're already planning to do this, but would you share specific things that we can give you as feedback now or information that would be helpful?
Yes.
No, I don't want to stop you, but it, because, and we do have lots of the information that was included in our materials.
Yes. So now with the rest of the time that I have with you all tonight, I would, while you're welcome to suggest certain programs and exact issues that you see in Somerville, we're really more interested in what are wider barriers and what are wider issues that you see across the city, what barriers to access for really anyone, but the populations that you all work with.
Hi, sorry, I have a question and I forgot where the hold your hand up button is.
Yeah, go ahead.
The
Wondering.
Speak clearly button works just fine, Nick. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
The speak directly button
Okay.
works just
I'll
fine.
just, all right. I have
Once you
permission
put
to
your hand
barge
up,
right
I
in.
can never get it back down. So please, go right ahead.
I was wondering, obviously there'll be input from the community about need. I didn't know if there were data about like bang for the buck in terms of spending. Like we have $100,000 to spend on X, that'll get you 100 of these, but one of these, like how that looks.
Yes, we do not have that exact data. Only thing I can say is if you go to the City of Somerville, the Special Projects, Community Development, Finance and Administration website page, we have our CAPERS, the Consolidated Action Annual Report Plan. I don't remember what CAPER stands for, but the CAPER is the annual report on how the money was spent. And for example, all the nonprofits that we fund through this grant, through these several grants, they are required to report when they apply. We think that through this program, we will serve X number of individuals or families or however their unit of measurement is. And then in the CAPER, we report how many were actually served.
Who doesn't love a caper?
Yeah. A fun word for a fairly boring report. Yes.
Thank
That
you,
answer your
Nick.
question, Nick?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Anyone else?
Any other questions or issues or barriers that you see across the city that you'd like to share?
And when you say that, you mean outside of, things that the city identifies as, will be remediated.
Sure. This is also somewhat, we're not in this plan because it's for 5 years. We're not saying, okay, we're going to give a lot of money to this exact playground. We're going to say we're going to give X amount or X% of the money to parks. And so do you think there is a need for more parks or for more accessible parks, or what would you like to see in these areas, which I'll remind you again are in the areas of housing, infrastructure, public facilities, economic development, public services, and homelessness. Yes, go ahead, Rashid.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you for the wonderful work you're doing. I'm really thrilled as one of the few new residents in Somerville, because I've been here now, it's coming to 4 years now. I would like to see when we're on the public, how do you call it, the playgrounds. I need to see more visibility on like designs to be more inclusive, like at times people look at because like it has to be inclusive in a sense that I may be a parent with a disability, I move on a wheelchair, but I want to bring my child, let's say, to a playground. How is it considered that I can also maybe access the children's playground or the public place with my child as I'm a wheelchair user, and then I can still take care of my child, like I can access them in case they may go to places that they may not be able to go to. And then also, I need to see more design that are inclusive if it's for children with disabilities. Because I live in Somerville, but near the Assembly Row, and there are some, I've always met children with disabilities around on wheelchairs, but they simply sit on the side to look around as their other small children are playing. But the playgrounds the public places are not really, and the swings and everything are not really disability friendly. For example, wheelchair users, I tend to lay so much emphasis on that. So I want to have an emphasis on more inclusive designs on that. And then another thing I'm not seeing into the plan is the integration of maybe immigrants or people with that come from outside the US. How are they? What plans are there to see them fully integrated into the communities that they live? Because we have quite a significant number of such people in Somerville, but I'm not seeing them. Maybe I did not read enough because I've just gotten the plan, but I'm not seeing where their special focus is put on them, yet we have a significant number of such people. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. In regards to immigrants, I will say, so this is only focused on low and moderate income. Of course, it's likely that someone new to the country would be a low moderate income person, but also Summer, they changed the name, Summer Viva is the Office of Immigrant Affairs. They also call themselves SOIA for that reason. Somerville Immigrant Affairs is a separate city department.
Okay.
Deborah, your question or comment?
Yes, my big concern is fully accessible housing. Somerville being a historic city, most of the housing are houses that, you know, have been built in the past 100 years. And for instance, I live in that designated area south of Magoon Square on that map. And every house on Highland Ave has stairs going up into the house. And it would be great if there was more accessible housing that had either direct access or ramps going up into it, or funds that go to homeowners in order to make that conversion.
Okay, thank you. Michael.
So, you know, my thinking would be homeless people who don't have homes. I think the number is about 40% of people who are homeless actually have some kind of mental or emotional neurodivergent kind of disability. And, you know, so along with that, and many don't want to go into housing. So I would see the need being to have more housing that would be able to support them, and more public services that would help be able to get them into housing. You know, and I don't know if you guys ever thought about it, but I saw this on YouTube and I just think it's a great idea. Those like really little houses that, you know, a lot of people actually choose to live in. And I'm not talking about a little home, but like there are these like makeshift kind of houses that people with emotional disabilities who the idea of going into housing itself is difficult for them. At least it will help them get off the street. And I don't know what our situation is in Somerville, but that's where I would see a lot of the need being.
Okay, thank you.
We're just about 5 after 8. Any other comments or feedback that anyone would like to give?
We should just speak.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
Because I have not examined your documents clearly enough, I think. So thank you for all your work. Do the grants, I think I heard they do include parks. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I would love you to check for us as the commission to see if included, whether specs are included or not, I don't know. But one of the big missings in our parks currently are if you build a picnic table, there needs to be a space next to it for a wheelchair to stand. If you build a bench, there needs to be a place next to the bench for a wheelchair to stand. And also that all approaches to all play, constructions need to be wheelchair rollable. And though the ADA sanctions what's called engineered fiber or very compacted wood chips, those are not a long-term solution and need a lot of maintenance. So I don't know if your work would cover anything that detailed, but if nothing else, for your own knowing of some of these problems that are not yet addressed in our parks. And I think Morsheed pointed toward that if you're a parent who has a wheelchair and you have children with disability, right, your children are there, but you can't enter the park and be with them. Or if you have children who do use a walker or a wheelchair, they can't approach or really use the park. So just for education, just for
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank you. So yeah, Harry, you bring up a point that I know we're near the end of my time, but just like this is also just a data gathering mission that while not everything that we want to fund can be funded by this program or by us with this amount of money, it's just good to know what's happening around the city and what people are seeing. And then I will say that we have access to help parks, but as well, we're not the parks department of the city. So we work with them. Thank you.
Well, you can help them get educated too. Thank you.
Exactly.
Helen?
We have time for one more. Yeah, Helen.
Did she do?
Oh, it might have been me. I'm Ingrid. I was raising my hand.
I just wanted to ask, I have found over the years that if you go to a community meeting, it's always the same people you see, people who are most active in the city.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, because these things are very important, how does the city reach out so that people who are not especially active, the people who just kind of take things the way they are, how will the city reach out other than by community meetings to let people know what is going on?
Yes. So what I'll first say is coming to meetings like we're trying to, with this process, meet people where they already are coming. Community meetings, of course, are ideal. We actually co-host our community meetings with other Main Streets organizations to have their contingency. But yeah, it's a problem that I think every public employee across the country deals with, is how to get those who are not actively engaged, and we're still working on it. But yeah, noted. Thank you. Ingrid?
Oh, thank you.
I don't have
I
anything else to say, but I don't know how to turn off my hand.
That's all right.
Just click on it. No,
You got it.
thank
I
you.
just wanted to say, as someone who spent lots and lots of times at the parks in the city, and I don't know all about what this goes into it, this has just been my perspective, is there's a little bit of a discrepancy at the playgrounds in particular about which ones have bathroom facilities and which ones don't, as far as like the throne depots or just like the high-end porta potties, which sounds ridiculous to say, but
I know, yes.
and it makes kind of a big difference because my kids go to the Argenziano and we play at Lincoln Park all the time. And there's a bathroom there sometimes, but not always accessible, or sometimes it's off. And we've had to leave the park many times because of that. And also somebody very close to me at a time had Crohn's disease, and whether or not there was bathroom accessibility was a big issue. And I know that for people with IBS and people with Crohn's, and I mean, even with MS, I have the bladder urgency is like one of the best parts of it. Not to be being sarcastic, I'm sorry. But I just mean there's a lot of different autoimmune diseases and gastrointestinal things that kind of prevent people from going places that something as even the simplest facilities could fix. And I know obviously people don't really want to be popping a squat in a children's park behind a bush or anything like that. So, and of course with kids, it's ever present, constant bathroom stuff. So I don't know what kind of money we have for that or what the seasonality of that is or how it works with the different parks. But as a disabled person and a parent, that's just prescient to me. So
Great, thank you. No time for more?
One thing I beg to talk about, just in a few seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about you'll forgive me, I'm just learning. It's about the bus stop, like seats, sheltered bus stops.
Okay.
I'm not seeing quite a number of them. Like most of the bus stops, there are no sheds. I'm sure I may not be using the right, maybe standard description of what, but I think you'll understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah,
I will say that the city is working on an updated bus plan within the next 2 years. So
Okay.
someone else is doing that, but yes.
Now they'll consider those bus stops because
Definitely.
most of them, like when it's raining or when it's winter, you have to wait for the bus in the open. So it's one thing I wanted maybe to talk about.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think I am out of time, but I thank you so much for all of your feedback and for having me today. I have gone back to this slide with the link to our survey and to our website. And again, both Holly and Adrian have access to my email if you need to get a hold of me after this. Thanks so much, you all.
Thank you, Miranda. Really appreciate you spending time with us and all the pre-work that went into these presentations. Thank you. And I just want to add that included in the 200 pages of documents this month was a few about this plan. There was a copy of the original email that everyone received on the 16th of January that had all the details, links to the plan, and the form that you can fill out if you wanted to provide feedback. There's also my favorite, sorry, that's not easy to see. It's a 2-pager that is a great summary of sort of the highlights of the project. That was also sent to everybody, and the full presentation. And then the last one was, this was shared with us in the news as well. Public record. So all of this has information to reach out to the city as well as to Miranda. And I know many of the, it's $3.2 million, and it's a lot of need. And some of the things that we brought up might also have another place to be put in front of, especially things like not having restrooms or bus transportation not being covered. I think they're very important to say here, but I think there might be another place where we can bring those to the attention of someone in the city. So thank you. Next time, if there's something else new, please reach out to Adrian and myself.
Sure, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions before I move on to the next bunch of things? I can't see any hands raised. Okay. First thing on our business for tonight is to review the event with the Red Sox. When we had met at our special meeting, we had voted to move forward with the event once all the once we had the ability to do so. And Sheila, would you like to give a brief update, or would you be comfortable giving an update?
Sure. I think there's just a lot of confusion and misunderstandings through this whole process, but what has happened is, as you know, Holly has, made a plan for Red Sox tickets, and they had invoiced us. And the invoice was really actually supposed to be due today. So the finance department has some questions about, the expenditure. And so Holly and I worked a little bit to try to resolve it. And I spoke with Ed Bean, the finance director, and Dave Shapiro, the assistant city solicitor. And and they did clear the way to have the Celtics tickets themselves paid for through the funds that come through the commission.
The Red Sox.
Red Sox, yes. So Holly had them re-invoice us so that it gave us a little bit more of wiggle room to try to get it paid. Ed Bean was very helpful in trying to help through the process. And so, of course, what we needed to do though tonight, I believe, Holly, is to actually, we voted last week to say that, yes, we're intending to have this event. That's our hope. What we have to vote now is the actual dollar amount for the tickets before they can process them through the finance department and get a check to the Red Sox. So we would have to do that tonight. And again, I forget the amount of the tickets. I don't know if you have the invoice in front of you, 48 tickets, I think. And so I know, I expect some of you probably attended the game last year, and it's actually on in May, and it's a Disability Pride night at the Red Sox. So it's a great event, and it's very good, way of getting people in our community that would not otherwise be able to attend a game like that because of their disability to be able to do so. So we did clear the way to get those tickets paid. Lots of other questions still up in the air about transportation, refreshments, that kind of thing, which we will work on and find out what we can do, what we can't do. But initially, if we had to get the tickets paid by the Red Sox deadline, they're holding the tickets for us until a certain day. So now we have until next week. So hopefully today's snow day didn't delay it too much, but until we have a vote from the commission saying that they would authorize that payment and that dollar amount, that's what's needed to move forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Brian, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I didn't catch, Sheila, if Ed Bean and David Shapiro approve. I know there was a question about whether we could continue to use the funds for this. Did they approve the use of the funds for this purpose or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Ed Bean has agreed, and David Shapiro agrees also.
Perfect.
So that once we get all, our paperwork in line and get it to them and have a vote in hand, they will process the payment. Other issues that go along with that event, like transportation, refreshments, I have not been resolved yet, but until we pay for the tickets, then we can move forward in discussions relative to everything that goes along with the event.
Awesome. Thank you, Sheila.
Okay.
Any other questions? Sheila had jumped in to help when we had our meeting to discuss HP funds, and she did all the legwork, reaching out, finding out what we needed. And I think the biggest thing was separating the tickets from refreshments or transportation or anything else that we would like to offer to our guests that night.
Right, and that's still, we'll be in discussions and hopefully resolved in one way or another.
Rashid, your hand's up.
I'm just trying to come up with an idea which can be refined, or maybe it may not be possible, but I thought I wanted to share with you. For example, the organizers, like last time I saw Holly and Adrian and the rest of you that have been organizing this, like when we're having like marches or any event, that you struggle a lot you struggle a lot to an extent that I would love to join you, but I fear because it's so tense. And I was thinking of, let's say if we know that we shall go, let's say at a Red Sox match, let's say in a given, let's say let's say in March or May or any other month, why can't we start with mobilizing, maybe calling upon people that would want to attend a match? And let's say that people that will be interested in attending the Red Sox match or on a match day will so let's say we know we have 20 people or any number that of the tickets available. And then when we get to see these people, then we get to know what are their basic, what are the kind of needs they have. Would they need transportation? Can they be able to move by train, by orange line, and the rest? But where I see problem is that we get those tickets and then it's like 2 weeks, and then we are calling around people to come and who would want to watch the match. At the same time, somebody comes in, you have to now to struggle for the kind of transportation our guests need to attend the match. So if we give it like a month or some 2 weeks of mobilizing or calling upon people that want to attend or wish to attend the match, and then we know the kind of people that are going to attend, we know the numbers, what are their needs, such that by the time we get the tickets, we shall already have worked on the transportation, we've worked on the meals, things like that. So it's one tilt I would request, if possible, that
Well, I agree, and there's so many moving parts to this, and I know the commission has done a great job in trying to get it all together, and there were some complications with the Celtics tickets, with trying to do the refreshments that became really so cumbersome that it became very difficult to deal with it. So the hope is exactly what you say, that we come up with the process going forward, that if we're going to continue with these kinds of events, that we have a process in place. And the transportation issue is difficult. There are, liability issues the city raises if you, in fact, you were to, rent vehicles or whatever, but maybe reimbursements to people or whatever. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion. And I think you're right that it's going to differ by the person that is attending, what the transportation needs are. So, I mean, the refreshments are a different issue. It's not going to vary that much between individuals that are there, but the transportation is very different for everybody. So I think we do have to get a handle, but the problem is we have to buy the tickets now. And so we have until May, and I talked to Ed Bean, once we get these paid, let's sit down, those involved, that sit down and try to figure out how to work out the rest of it. And get a process in place that we will follow each time we have an event like that.
Machine, thank you for the information that you shared. And I think what you were saying also, Sheila, is we have until May before this event actually happens. And once we discuss how much we'd like to fund towards this event, then that check can be processed and sent along to the Red Sox, who have been very lenient in the time frame.
Yes.
But until we have that done, the piece with finance can't be completed. And I do think it's very important, Rashid, that we have a way to broaden the groups of people that are aware of these events, and having at least 3, maybe 4 months, to reach out to different people within the community. I think that'll get us probably a waiting list, I would expect, because we do have 68 tickets. 50 of them are in the grandstand and the other 18 are accessible. And the 50 seats that are in the grandstand are 2 steps away from the accessible seats. So anyone who doesn't need, anyone who can walk 2 steps and be very comfortable getting into those seats versus someone who may need a mobility aid to get and sit in the accessible reserved seating, we have options. So, we had at the Celtics event, a limited number of accessible seats. And we also had this steep climb that I wasn't aware of until we got there. And so at this event, we will have 2 short steps. Sorry, Adrian, you've had your hand raised.
Through the chair, and thank you, Sheila, for your work. And Ed Bean did speak to me as well as that process was going on. So I did put the amount in the chat because obviously you all will have to take action, but it is $2,380 for the tickets. That is what is on the invoice I am looking at right now. With that said, from a logistical support perspective, as soon as this is processed or even in process, we can certainly work within RSJ to help with promotion and sort of RSVPs for tickets, to Murshid's point of sort of gauging what people will need. Because even if the reality is that a vehicle can't be provided, at least you can start to sort of not group people, but sort of create groups of people who can travel together. So if there's a group that is able to take the train, there can be a meeting point. There could be, this group now is big enough where there could be a T point person who is in, you know, it's like a field trip, right? It's a, you know,
Okay.
and so you all, the good news is you did this once before, which with a much smaller commission last summer for the first time. So you're doing it again and you have more time and you have more people to help. So I would suggest, to Sheila's point, you know, a working group or a smaller group of people who are interested. And of course I can support that as staff liaison, you know, to get the logistics going, including sort of, if there's a wait list, confirming with people, you know, what to do if somebody changes their mind, you know, things like that.
Thank you, Adrian. Much appreciate. I have to put this to a vote now, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve.
Can I just add one thing, Holly? One of the things I did talk with the finance department on is working on a process for the payment piece of it. But that's just one piece of it. The other piece is sort of a policy for how we're going to deal with it. Just that, the points you just made, Adrian, how we advertise it, how we choose people. You know, if you haven't gone before, maybe you get preference if to someone has gone before. All kinds of things that would you know, make it a very open process and, you know, reach as many people as we can. So those are things, that part the commission, I think, has to work on. The finance part, we can work with the, you know, with Adrian and the finance department on it, but also I think we have to set some guidelines for how we're going to manage these events.
Thank you, Sheila. I think having more tickets and having, we have a new communication process that we're building on. I don't want to bounce around, but I think that'll give us more modalities to be pushing out events and reaching out to different people. So 2380, we know we want to include transportation. I don't know if that will be individual transportation or a bus. I don't know what types of food or other things, you know, we would never cover non-alcoholic beverages. I think if we were to agree to keep it under $5,000, I hope it wouldn't cost us that much. I think it would cost significantly less, but if anyone else has any thoughts about a $5,000 amount for the event, if they think it should be higher or lower, what that would be is we would allocate a certain amount of money as a maximum towards those 3 items for the event. And if we, for whatever reason, needed to extend that, we would have to do another vote. But the goal is not to spend, you know, the suggested $5,000, but the goal is to have a guide as to what we'd like to commit to the event.
This is Harriet. I just have a 3-second thing to say, and I want to second your motion for $5,000. I don't know if you said it yet, but what I want to remind us is what we spoke of in our last meeting and other meetings. The most amazing thing about generating this kind of social event is many, many people with disabilities never get to go to a large an amazing sports event. And the power of people with disabilities showing up and being able to show up for such an event just strengthens our community and the knowledge that we exist and we like to enjoy ourselves as well as have jobs, which of course is key. But you sort of see what I mean? It's like, it's really enriching. And I'm personally very excited that we're doing it, though I don't know squat about baseball. Okay. So have you made a motion or did I make that up, Holly?
Oh, Holly, I think you're still muted.
Sorry, Deborah, you had something to add.
Yes, I just thought it makes more sense at the moment to only authorize for the tickets until we hear back from Ed whether transportation and food is going to be approved.
But it's the process that we need them to approve, not necessarily how we want to spend the funds.
Okay, I thought it had been in question.
I think,
whether
yeah, I
those
think there
types of
were
things-
concerns about if this was, you know, public funding and how our account works and what's being handled. And that's been clarified. The event tickets plus money for transportation and food is a vote to budget or allocate an amount. And then as we all discussed, we will work together to figure out, you know, Sheila will work with Ed to figure out what types of things or the process of how we pay for them. At the Celtics event, we had some issues paying for those last minute items that we will need to avoid in the future. So it's not that the city doesn't want us to use our funds for transportation or food. It's that we need to just make sure that the process in which we pay for those items follows, you know, the fiscal.
This is
Adrian, you had-
Pauline.
Go ahead.
Do we owe you for any of that, Holly? For what you had to do
Oh, no,
at the
no, no.
Celtics game?
Nope, everything is all set. We had a budget approved and we did not spend over that budget. But no worries, you're all good.
Oh, okay, because I know you had a little difficulty and I wasn't sure exactly what was going on, but then
It all came together. It all came together.
A lot of times I don't get it. But
That's okay.
the other thing I wanted to say is that last year there were 3 of us who really wanted to go to the game and the ride snafu'd big time. And I'm kind of hoping, and I don't think it's going to happen, that we could get a bus or something to alleviate that problem.
So I agree. The question that allocating money towards food, you know, refreshments and transportation is within our purview. But as far as how will Sheila work with the city to figure out how do we pay for a bus? What could their liabilities be? How do we allow people to go different ways? You know, and you know, one thing someone said to me is the seniors center, Council for the Aging, forgive me, the Council for the Aging organizes trips and they get on a bus and they go to Foxwoods, they go to all different places. So if
I know they do, yeah.
Yeah, if we're able as a municipality to provide transportation there, maybe that information, if we can find out how it would apply to us doing a different public event. So we need the vote so we can send a check and hold the seats and get those seats. And then the rest of the pieces will fall in.
And the motion has been made. What was the motion originally?
Motion will be to allocate $5,000 towards the Red Sox event, February, May 13th in May, to include refreshments, and transportation. And then Ed can process the payment, and then we can meet as a smaller group would like to talk about, separately about how do we communicate this event, and also working with the city on what little pieces we need to make sure that we're following.
I'm going to second that motion.
Helen,
Unless I'm out of order, I don't know.
it's okay.
Holly, I'm sorry to interrupt through the chair, but I do need to speak to Deborah's point because there is some validity there and it's a point of education for this group. You are correct. You could vote on $10,000 if that's what you wanted to do, if that's the amount you wanted. However, the only amount that will be marked in the record of this fund will be the roughly $2,400 for the tickets, because you have an invoice for that. It's been submitted and it will go in process with the purchase order. You have plenty of money in this fund, so it's not a concern to, vote on it. But a more better practice is that you could wait till March and have another vote, because it might be a larger amount of money. But again, I leave it to this body to do whatever. But the remainder of that 5,000 isn't necessarily going to be held or requisitioned, because there's nothing to requisition it. You don't have paperwork to do that. Again, you have plenty, so it's not going to be an issue, but it's just a point of the process. With that said, Stephen did have me research buses just in case that worked out for Celtics. And from what I remember, and it was at the top of the year, if that works out, a bus is probably going to be around $2,500 to $3,000 to rent for the night. So just keeping that on your brain as you all discuss finances.
Thank you. I had seen something almost half that, but I think that the point is that allocate, voting to allocate $5,000 towards the event. And if we need additional funding based on what it would cost for food or for transportation, we would definitely need to go back and vote again. And I appreciate you sharing that number. Sorry, Helen, you had a question?
Yes, Adrian has sort of answered it, but what I was going to ask was, shouldn't we, if people approve, at least vote on the 2380 tonight and vote on the extra funds when you know what it's going to be? So I don't know how I can I amend the vote, the request?
So let me make the motion.
Okay.
So I'm going to motion that we vote to approve $5,000 for the Red Sox Disability Pride event in May.
Yeah. Holly, you've already made the motion and Pauline has already seconded. We're in discussion, and yes, you may amend, somebody may amend the motion if there's also a second.
I would like to amend the motion that we allocate $2,380 for the tickets and plan to vote on the additional expenses later on.
I would second that. This is Deborah.
Seconded with amendments.
So now, Brian, as I understand it,
Yep.
there has to be discussion on
Right.
this amended motion. And
We
then
can
once that's over, the amendment has to be voted on and then the original motion, correct?
Correct. That is
Okay,
correct.
Robert's Rules 101. Here we go.
Good job, Adrian.
I'd like to add something, but would anyone else like to speak first if they would like to amend the amendment, amend the amended?
Go ahead. You go ahead, Holly.
I prefer that we start with the $5,000 so that we don't have to go back and forth. Any monies that aren't spent, just like with the Celtics event, go right back. into our account. And the complexities of us voting and the timing, and since we have to have a full body present, if something were to shift, or if we didn't know to ask for it next month and then we needed it then, we could just end up in a timing issue. So that's why I had suggested that we start with the $5,000.
One quick question, really to Adrian. What is the time frame typically? I mean, we worked on this one a little differently than we have in the past, right? Because this was just kind of trying to get those tickets. But ordinarily, for instance, if we voted the 5,000 tonight, we would have the ability to go ahead and make other arrangements. You know, that could work. We can also come back and meet and do it. So say between now and even the March or April meeting, we have, you know, more information on the costs of transportation and refreshments. What is the time frame from the time we vote? How long would it take us to have those funds in time for the game?
So Stephen Fife is the Deputy Director for RSJ, for those of you who don't know. With that said, and Holly, I don't know if you remember this because it feels a while ago, we did come up with initial process. The finance department really likes a lead time of 6 to 8 weeks to process anything.
The finance department?
Yes, which includes auditing and procurement and all those things. It's much bigger than people think it is, but.
Well, that would be a problem then if we wait much longer. Because 6 to 8 weeks, well, say 2 months, 6 to 8 weeks at the most, 2 months, that would bring us to, I mean, it would have to be done.
Sheila,
Finalized in
I will
March.
speak freely, and I can't speak for the finance department because I don't work for the finance department. If they have everything they need, it tends to be around that 6-week mark or much less. But so you asked what you needed. So for instance, we'll go back to.
I'm sorry, I got confused. Would you just say that again? I got confused.
Yeah. So ideally, for any sort of processing with finance, when they are cutting a check to anybody, so they're paying, so if we're paying for cart or something like that, from invoice, so receiving of invoice, and Stephen or I sends it through the process, it can take anywhere from up to 6 to 8 weeks for a check to be on its way. And we mail checks. They're not sent electronically. So there's mailing with that. So in this instance, and also over the summer, which was a push, we managed to speed it, but that's not an ideal situation for anybody because there needs to be time for processing. There needs to be time to make sure we have the right documentation in place. So for instance, you already have the documentation for these tickets in place. It's in the hands where it needs to be. All they're waiting for is an action from this commission that they want to spend $2,380 from the Accessible Parking Fines Fund on these tickets. And then it will probably go this week or next, this week probably because it needs to be there by the 23rd, which is, I'm reading that from the invoice. But ideally, especially, you know, because May is when we're wrapping up a current fiscal year, you know, May and June, it's sort of that 6-week time frame as long as paperwork is received. And what that gives time for is if something is missing or a question needs to be answered, there's time to answer it. So ideally, that's what it is. And we don't want to get in a habit of always speeding things through because it does need to be accurate and it does need to be reported. I understand that it's already feeling like a time constraint with the 6 weeks. And, you know, but at the same time, it's hard because it's unknown whether or not you're going to be able to cover refreshments and transportation. And hopefully that question can be answered soon. Also, a situation like this is where, not to add work to people, where the idea of a special or a second meeting could come into play, meaning you find out that you can cover.
Okay, we have 15 minutes
Yeah.
and another hour, and I apologize, that didn't sound very friendly. I'm sorry, I did not mean for that not to sound friendly. We have 15 more minutes, Adrian. Would you like to wrap up or?
I would like to withdraw my motion based on what Adrian has just said about the length of time to get more money approved.
Okay. Thank you very much, Adrian, for sharing all those details. And thank you, Sheila, for the work that you did and all the next steps that we'll go through. So did we just unamend the amended, or do we start over?
No, Helen withdrew her amendment. Unless Deborah objects, the amendment is withdrawn and we're back to the $5,000 motion.
I do not object.
Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, well, I'm gonna put it to a vote then.
And Holly, just to clarify your motion, this is $5,000 to be spent for Red Sox tickets and transportation costs and food, beverage, souvenir fund? Or is it just transportation and tickets?
I think it should be for transportation, event tickets, and food. If someone decides that there's this fantastic trinket that we would love to discuss and offer, I think we can probably do that next month. But like last year's Disability Pride event, they did give us all a red hat with the Pride logo on the front of the Red Sox, and it was in Braille. It was embossed Red Sox across the bill. So the hat is similar, a little bit different, but there will be this really nice gift that they give to groups who attend Disability Pride.
Perfect.
So $5,000. I think the best thing for me to do is to go down the list just so we get a vote from everyone. So roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Brian.
Yes.
And then my list of names goes away. I'm so sorry. It won't let me pull up the participants.
Holly, if you would like me to do roll call vote,
I would very much appreciate that,
Okay.
Brian. Thank you.
All right, I've recorded my vote. Deborah,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Ingrid,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Helen,
Hello.
Yes,
Marshid,
Yes.
Pauline, Pauline,
Unmute yourself.
Yes.
yes. Harriet
Yes.
and Holly.
Yes.
All in favor, motion passes. Just confirming, I didn't miss anybody. Lori, I know you will be voting next month.
Yes, you will.
Perfect.
Thank
Motion
you.
passes.
Okay. So we have funded the event. We will move forward with the finance piece, how we manage or how we can process food, transportation, and the best way to communicate this event out to the community. So I'll be reaching out to several of you over the next week or so just to get some input. One thing that I don't want to forget that's on our agenda. We have 10 minutes.
Also, one point, Holly and Brian, I mean, we have to get something to Ed Bean that says we voted tonight.
I will send him an email right after this meeting.
I actually already drafted it, so I'm waiting.
Oh.
Okay.
Hit send.
He's ready to go.
Thank you. Included in the documentation that you received, there were some very important notices. The first one was the approval of 20 Stephenson Amon Street regarding the depth of the accessible sinks. So that was approved. It never went to hearing. The other one is an update that there will be a hearing on February 26th at 2:00 to hear from 33 Bow Street. We had met with them. We did not agree with their request. They went back and they're looking for, they're working towards an elevator, but they had to have another hearing. So that hearing is on February 26th. And the board's upcoming meeting. So the February 26th. Oh, sorry, this is the link to the details of how you set up with that hearing. So you'll have 3 pages included in the bulk of agenda items that were shared, meeting materials that are about those hearings. There's also the information about intersection improvements. There's 2 documents about that. They're looking for public feedback. One of those documents started with Adrian sending it out to the group. I think it's a great opportunity if you haven't already responded. The same is about intersection improvements. Open space and recreation plan. That was the third one. And that was, they were looking for public feedback on that opportunity. There were 2 attachments included. One has all of the links and things that would go on that plan would be changes to parks, changes to school spaces. So anything that is publicly open and part of recreation could be suggested in this plan. And again, all of those 3 groups of things that I just talked about, you would be providing feedback as a resident.
Excuse me, Holly, is that only in a written comment form? Will there be hearings? And last question is, can we get to see Joy Design's redesign before the hearing?
I would have to look through those documents, which I will, and see how we respond and what the timelines are for each. And I don't know, we will not be speaking with Joy Design before February 26th.
That I understood, but I would sure like to see what their redesign looks like.
I will double check if it wasn't already sent to everyone, and if not, I will send it tonight. And Rashid, you found that email that I forwarded to you with the documents?
Oh, I think you're still muted.
You're still muted, Rashid.
I have it before me. I got it.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. 1 second. Okay. So I've talked with a few of you the last week or so about interests in some of the different projects that we need to work on, specifically communication, the events from a financial perspective, as far as, you know, what Sheila's been doing. And one of the things that we did also talk about the on the education aspect of the work that we would do. One thing that came up, yesterday was that Harriet and I were at an event, and Rashid attended also, and it was a book event, and it was a local writer who published a book about her disabilities, and it focused on not just, and she calls it a medical memoir. It's not just what her medical disability was, it was about how she was perceived and discriminated against in her employment, in her job at the time. And at that event, one thing that Rashid brought up was how great it is to have a book. And please correct me, Rashid, if I'm not, if I say anything differently than what.
I don't mind.
So how wonderful it would be to be able to give these books away, and to have them at libraries or to give them to children. And I know we've talked about in general providing books to our residents, to children specifically, that deal with the topics of disability, either in a children's book or in a book like Laurie's. So Laura would like us to do the event with the library again in May, another event. And I wanted to suggest that we, as a group, have a discussion, 2 or 3 of us, just about how do we share and educate the community about persons with disabilities using literature. So whether it be purchasing books or going and reading books or having another public event like that she had, where she was reading from a book that she wrote about her disability. Do you want to add any other comments, Rashid? Or
Yeah. Yes. I think that one will work. But on that day, yesterday, when we are attending that event, there is one thing I realized, that we have quite a number of people with disabilities and friends and family members of people with disabilities that have stories to tell, but they don't have a platform to tell the stories. And I was thinking, like, if you have like a day of that, like the way you did it, it's like somebody was presenting a book, but there are also other people like I and the rest of the people that also were able to share their stories. And one maybe missing link about this was that if at all there was a link between the stories that were shared with the available resource of the Somerville Media Center, maybe to record, or maybe if at all people tell stories and these stories can be maybe written, and at times like a series of these stories written in time can even come up with like something like maybe a magazine or a write-up that can also be maybe read by other people in time to come. So I'm thinking of like, if we can have like a book and then even people tell stories, I think it's something that can bring more people with disabilities in Somerville out of where they are, because people need to share stories, but they don't know how to share them. They don't know who will need it. And then people can even be inspired to write their own stories or books. That's what I add.
Before you even said media center, I scrolled down our list to see if Henry was here, and he has since raised his hand. Would you like to add a comment, Henry? I think this is definitely in your wheelhouse. And
I would comment to the honorable gentleman that I am a trustee of the Media Center and an active producer on Boston Free Radio. And
for
Holly
those who can't see, Murshid is lifting his arm straight up in the air, excited with what Henry is saying.
And Holly can provide you with my contact information.
Thank you, Henry, very much. Good to see you. We are at 8:59. Any other materials or items that were not covered will either get moved to next month's agenda, or some of them were if they haven't been reviewed or discussed here. Before I get to say it's 9 o'clock and I finished on time, any other comments or questions that are less than that will keep us on time, or anyone else want to add something before we convene?
This is Harriet, and I just want to say hooray and thank you for piloting us and all of us working together tonight. We can make a difference. Thanks.
All right, I'm gonna put a motion that we adjourn the meeting. I just need a
Second the
second.
motion.
Pauline?
Yeah, I second the motion.
Great, thank you, Pauline. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Good
all.
night.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks, everybody.
Aye.